Hi, my name's Bass. I'm one of the resident New South Wales coaches here working for the Australian Institute of Fitness. Now, while many Australians are currently in and out of lockdown, including myself, I thought I'd put together a 30-minute full body weight program that you can do in the beauty of your own home. Now, the amazing part about this program is you'll just need 2 pieces of equipment, yourself and a resistance band. So before we get started today, I just want to briefly talk about the warm-up. Now, the warm-up's got to fulfill 2 criteria. Number 1, we need to get that blood flowing effectively throughout our body. Number 2, we've got to increase our heart rate, and that is the emphasis on dynamic stretching and not static stretching. So dynamic stretching is taking a stretch through the range of motion. What I'll be doing next is showing you a couple of examples of some dynamic stretches before we get into the workout. So before we start our workout, we're going to do a couple of demonstrations for some dynamic stretches. Our first one is called a walkout. So assuming a lateral position, what we're going to be doing is bending at the hips, gently place our hands on the floor, stretch nice and far, assume a push-up position, spine straight, and then gently bring our hands back towards our body, and then standing up nice and tall. Once again, bend at the hips, gently bring our hands forward, assume a push-up position, and then gently bring our hands back up, and standing nice and tall. Our second dynamic stretch is called a monster. So the name basically describes it. We're going to be squatting nice and deep, and then opening up at the hands, just like a monster scares people. Squatting nice and deep, and then opening up at the arms and the hands too as well. Our last dynamic stretch is called the world's greatest stretch. So from a side-on view, you're going to see me get into a push-up position. Spine nice and straight. We're going to bring one of our legs outside our hands. We're going to bring that same arm, drift it underneath the other arm, and then open up at the back and the hips. Again, drifting up nice and slowly, opening up at the back and the hips. The back leg does not touch the floor with the knee too. Now that we've completed the warm-up, I'd like to briefly talk about the formalities of the program. The exercises we'll be covering today will be the bodyweight squat, the bodyweight lunge, the deadlift, the bodyweight push-up, and of course the banded row. Now these exercises will be performed in a circuit style format, meaning there'll be no break in between each exercise. However, there'll be 15 repetitions for each exercise. For the lunges, it'll be 10 on each side, and there'll be a break after we complete one round or one set of those 5 exercises, and the break will be between 30 to 60 seconds. Our first exercise for today is a bodyweight squat. It's going to be targeting our quadriceps, our hamstrings, our glutes, and even our lower leg muscles, and best of all, even our core too. Simply to perform a squat, we're going to keep our feet shoulder width apart, knees pointing and toes pointing slightly outwards. We're going to fold at the hips, bend at the knees, pretend a sheet of newspaper is underneath the floor. I like to picture that as an analogy. And then we're going to rip that newspaper apart on the way down, and then simply bring that newspaper up on the way up. So ripping it on the way down, bringing that newspaper back together on the way up, while keeping our spine nice and straight. A great variation or a progression to a squat is a Bulgarian or a split squat, so you can even use a chair in your own home. What we're simply going to be doing is elevating one leg onto the chair, keeping it nice and stable. We're going to bring this knee forward. We're going to place the pressure or weight on the foot that's placed on the floor, drop it down nice and slow. We just want to reach 90 degrees, and then bring it up nice and tall, keeping our spine nice and straight, allowing this leg to balance. This leg is going to be holding the majority of the weight, and then bring it up nice and tall. Our second exercise for today is a static lunge. That's going to be targeting our quads, our hamstrings, our glutes, our lower leg muscles, and even our core. The difference with a static lunge and a squat is a lunge is all about stability under load. So to perform a static lunge, we're simply going to be taking an adequate step forward. We're going to be bending both knees at 90 degrees. Once they reach about 90 degrees, keep our back nice and straight. We assume that position, and we're simply going to be stretching back up again. So extend those knees, and then bend them to get 90 degrees, and then extend up. Now a variation or a progression to a static lunge is an alternating lunge. We're simply going to get into the same position again. We're going to be stepping forward, bending at 90 degrees, but instead of being static, we're actually going to be pushing back off that leg, bringing it back to our starting point again. Bending at 90 degrees, keeping the hips straight, and then pushing back up again. Our third exercise for today is a deadlift. A deadlift is going to focus on the glutes, the hamstrings, even the quads, the lower back muscles as well, and including the core to keep us stable. So the main difference with a squat and a deadlift is a squat is a knee hinge and a deadlift is a hip hinge. So what we're simply going to be doing keeping our feet shoulder width apart, pointing our toes slightly out, keeping our knees nice and soft. We're going to fold our arms forward. We're going to bend and fold at the hips, and then bend the knees ever so slightly, and then fold back up at the hips, kind of like a door hinge. Fold at the hips, keep the knees slightly soft, and then fold back up again. A variation or a progression to this exercise is using a resistance band. We're simply going to step nice and wide on the band, create as much tension as possible, wrap our arms around the band, simply start in our starting point, soft knees, and we're going to use that resistance to bring ourselves back up and tall, nice and straight. So soft knees, assuming position with the folding of the hips, using the resistance band to fold and stand nice and tall. Our fourth exercise today is a bodyweight push-up. Now the beauty about the bodyweight push-up is it targets multiple muscles, including your pecs, your upper traps, your deltoids, even the triceps on the way up. To perform a push-up, quite simply, like we did in a warm-up with our walkouts, we're going to assume a walkout position, keeping our hands underneath our shoulders, shoulder width apart, spine nice and neutral. What we want to be doing is ensuring that when we fold our elbows or bend the elbows, our chest contacts the floor as we extend up. What we don't want to see is enfolding in the hips dipping forward. So chest must contact the floor first, and then extend our elbows back up. A progression or a variation to this exercise is simply grab your resistance band, wrap it around your shoulders, increase that tension, assume the same position in a push-up. Same thing, hands underneath shoulders, using the resistance from the band, keeping our spine nice and straight, and then extending back up with that resistance. Our final exercise for today is a seated band row. Now this particular exercise will be working our lats, our rhomboids, which are between our shoulder blades, our upper traps, and even our biceps will be used to engage the movement. Now just please be mindful of this exercise using a band, because this can commonly cause injury. We need to make sure to wrap it around our feet in a figure 8 shape to ensure it's steady, but also to create more tension. So wrapping around in a figure 8, once we've got it wrapped around in a figure 8, we're simply going to keep it nice and tight, keeping our knees nice and soft. Hands are placed in what we call a neutral position, and we're simply going to be tucking our elbows in and then squeezing and then bringing that towards your body. Extending your arms nice and forward, keeping your back straight, and then squeezing and then bringing that band close to your body once again. Now a variation or a progression to this exercise is a bent over row. So we're going to assume a standing position. We're going to be standing shoulder width apart outside the tube band, creating more tension. What we're going to do is wrap our hands around the band to create more tension. We're going to keep our knees nice and soft. We're going to be leaning forward, keeping our body nice and parallel to the floor, and we're simply going to be pulling that resistance back up again. So this assumed position is going to be focusing on the same exact muscles. So while many people emphasize on a great warm-up in their program, they often neglect the cooldown, and the cooldown is just as essential as a warm-up. It's designed to lower that heart rate down gradually and allow that blood to flow back up to the rest of our body. So to perform a cooldown, all we're going to be doing is an aerobic rhythmical movement like a walk. After we've lowered the heart rate down, we're going to do a static stretch, which is not taking this joint through its range of motion. So that concludes the session for today. It is crucial to keep the body moving, in particularly during lockdown, to promote longevity, increase sustainability, even increase your strength and your cardiovascular fitness and endurance. The amazing part about this program is you can do it in the beauty of your own home using limited amount of equipment. Thank you for joining me in today's session. I hope you enjoyed it.